name's Dan Lynders, bass player in Melbourne. I started playing bass when I was about 14. I'd been playing drums for about 2 years before then, and then I broke my ankle when I was about 15, so I couldn't play drums for a little while. And I found my mum's old bass in the shed, and she said to me, "Well, why don't you play a bit of bass?" So I did. I started playing bass at high school, and that was the role that everyone sort of needed, a bass player, so I just got more and more work as a bass player and more gigs.
Seems to be always the case, right?
It is, yes. Everyone needs a good bass player. So
that's kind of how Jacko started, didn't he?
Yeah.
Play drums and he broke his wrist.
Something like that, yeah. And so
you're basically like Jacko.
Frustrated drummer who became a good bass player.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Cool.
Probably when I started playing bass properly, I sort of learnt a few of my favourite songs and learned a few riffs and licks, and thought this is actually something I feel really natural, it feels really comfortable to do. So I decided at that point, yeah, it would be worth being a bass player. It was something that I really had a passion for, and I started practising a lot. Yeah. First bass belonged to my mum. It was an old BB series Yamaha, a BB 300, and I found that in Mum's garage and pulled that out, started playing it. I played that right up until the end of my high school days. I went to uni with that, and the first amp was an old Fender Bassman 80, so an old valve Fender amp, which I blew up when I was about 20. So yeah, I got a few good years out of that old valve bass amp, yeah. Probably, well, other than my local teachers, I had a really great music teacher at high school who helped me develop my bass playing, and he was a music teacher and a bass player, so he was probably my inspiration to sort of keep going with it. He'd show me some great little things, and that was my sort of inspiration. But in terms of players, probably Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers was the, I heard a few of those bass lines and I just worked my butt off learning how to play those bass lines, so probably Flea in terms of a musician, yeah, was the best one for me.
Yeah, and then in terms of a teacher or a mentor?
Well, when I started getting serious lessons, that was with Evripedi's Evripedu, who was from a great fusion band, which is On the Verge, Virgil Donati, and he was a great mentor to me and sort of showed me a lot of the stuff that, you know, sort of expanded my mind to what the bass could do.
Yeah.
Probably One Hot Minute from the Chili Peppers. That was an album where I had to learn every lick from every note of every song. And it had just come out at the time, and yeah, that was a really influential album for me. And then I went back and looked at stuff like Blood Sugar Sex Magic, and then from there had a lot of my family. Music's a big part of my family and my family life, so a lot of my family liked a lot of 80s rock, so I listened to a lot of Van Halen, Guns N' Roses, that sort of thing. So I had a smattering of playing rock music with an element of funk in there as well. So yeah, well, one that I got from John Patitucci was the Spider, so that was a great warm-up exercise, yep. Which I'm sure you've heard of before. So where it's working the independence of each finger. I like doing that every gig. Even before I plug in, I'll just play that exercise a few times just to sort of warm my fingers up. Can't go past a simple major scale, you know, playing that in a few different positions just to get my hands warm around a bass, so you always start with C major. But I'll play it anywhere on the bass, and depending on whether I'm playing a 5 or a 6 string or just a 4 string, I'll do that in a few positions just to sort of warm my fingers and get used to that. And then for other warm-ups, it might be something like a few licks, so something from a blues scale, often the E blues scale. Just to get my ears going. Once I'm plugged in and I'm sort of playing, I like to sort of play some little licks and stuff just to sort of get myself used to the room and what I'm doing. So. Well, time is the most important one. So a bass player who has really good time, I think, is the most important thing. A lot of it's awareness, so being able to work with the players that you're playing with, so listening to what the drummer's doing, listening to what the other instruments are doing. I think that's really important. So a good bass player will listen to the other members of the band and knowing their stuff. So once you've got good time established, knowing the pieces you're playing or the style that you're playing in, and really working off the other instruments in the band, especially the drums. So my current setup, this is my go-to bass. It's just a G&L tribute series, so there's nothing flash, it's just a 5-string bass, but I love the specs. It's got a great maple neck, so this is my main gigging bass because I can take this anywhere, and if it gets destroyed in a flight or it gets knocked over or has alcohol spilt on it or something like that, it doesn't really bother me so much. But I have a beautiful Warwick 4-string, which I use as well, which is over here. Get off camera. So got a beautiful Warwick 4-string that I like to use as well, which is the custom series, the LTD 2010 model. Nice. So that one I quite like as well for 4-string stuff. I do use that for a lot of clinics. And yeah, and my main rigs are Mark bass rigs. So I've got a Mark bass Mark head, which is at 800 watt power stage. I've also got my L&K, which is nice and light and portable. And today I'm just using the Mark bass 2x10. We've also got a quad.
Is that the Traveller?
Yeah, that's just the little Traveller one. Yep, and I love the tweeter in that. It's really nice to have a bit of top end coming through the mix as well when I'm playing with that. That'll serve me for about 80% of my gigs. When I'm doing larger stuff, then I'll use a Mark bass quad. And I've got the larger head, which I like to use with that as well. And again, that'll serve the rest of what I'm doing. Obviously, when you tour, you just get whatever you get for backline, but I always like to try and ask for a Mark bass rig just because I love what they can do. So. Yeah. Well, I suppose music's a lifelong journey. You never really stop learning how to be a musician. So I suppose expressing myself on the bass is something that I like to do a lot. So every bass player has their own sound. It's nice to play other people's music and sort of incorporate their styles and their sounds into your own sound. So I suppose to communicate better, I suppose, would be my ideal thing that I suppose I'm always striving to do, is to play, you know, learn all the theory, learn the scales, do the woodshedding, you know, practice, but then to be able to replicate that live and sort of bring out a little bit of my own personality into my playing on stage. So I'm always striving to bring out who I am as a bass player. The Melbourne music scene is really supportive. The one thing I've noticed is there are lots and lots of great musicians in Melbourne across such a wide range of genres, and there's a gig every night of the week. There's something you can go see, something you can be a part of. So the Melbourne community is really quite supportive. I haven't really worked a lot in other scenes other than Melbourne, but the one thing I have noticed from players that come from elsewhere is that they'll come to Melbourne and say, you know, it's really easy to find a great group of musicians to work with, and there's always a gig in whatever style you're playing. So I think it's a really supportive scene, lots of great gigs, and lots of great venues too. Definitely. So I've got a fusion project which is called Atomic Clock, which is with a very talented drummer, Damien Corniola, and a guitarist, Matt Fidoulis, and so we do a lot of fusion gigs. I'm also in a country rock band called Deep Creek Road, and so we do a lot of touring, and we're working on an album for that at the moment, so go to deepcreekroad.com, you'll see that one. And I'm also working with a band called Robot Child. So Robot Child is a sort of alternative rock project with some very, very talented players, and that's a real compositional thing, so we get to work on our sort of alternative rock chops. So those are the three main projects on top of all the regular sort of cover band gigs and corporate work and shows that I do. So yeah.
Cool, man. Well, that's it. Nice.
Bass Lessons Melbourne.